Hello everyone and welcome to the showdown between the Dark Elves led by Malekith and the Tomb Kings who are going to be led by Katep atop his mighty Roomba. I think that was actually one of my favorite comments I had on the last video. It does look like he's riding one of those Roombas. Like, you know those like little droid things that go into your room and like clean everything and they like bump into the corners and vacuum? It totally looks like he's riding one of those things on his Casket of Souls, which is pretty cool. But guys, this game is actually taking place in pre-release. However, you're probably going to be seeing it after launch. It's against the mighty Gabo King, who did actually get early access. Definitely some very cool stuff. And just a disclaimer, this was actually his first game ever playing Tomb Kings, if I'm not mistaken. So, he's still learning the ropes with all these guys, but definitely a very strong composition. Getting some Shopti Great Bows and all that kind of good stuff. But as far as my army goes, something I really learned from early access, I played a couple of games with Lore Master of Sotek and Indie Pride and a couple with Gabo King, is that the way to really deal with Tomb Kings, in my opinion, and again, Tomb Kings players are going to adapt to this and find out ways to beat it, but what I found to be most effective is just very heavy infantry front lines. Like I was bringing like Bleak Swords and Blackheart Corsairs and things like that, and I found that they were trading too evenly with the Skeleton Warriors and some of these frontline troops, and they just get mowed down by Ushapti. So even like the Ushapti, Great Bows and Melee can run up and just beat those guys down. But if you go with very heavy infantry, so what I really recommend doing, like I tried it with Chaos. I would just bring like Chosen and, some Chaos Warriors with shields in the front line and mix them with Chosen with halberds. And it seems to be really strong. So what I like doing is getting Blackguard and Nagarond, as well as Harganeth Executioners and a bunch of other troops like that in the front line. And it is just so tough for the Tomb Kings to deal with. You mow down their Skeleton Warriors in, a matter of, a couple minutes. It's really easy. Usually in the front line battle. And then from there, you just kind of advance forward, you get on the Chosen of the Gods and get in the back line. And it's very tough for the Tomb Kings to deal with heavily armored halberd units. One of the best ways to do it, and the Gabo King is obviously picked pretty well, is getting these Ushapti Great Bows. They can mow down my infantry. You can see my Harganeth Executioners, and some of these guys are taking quite a bit of damage. And Katep atop his Casket of Souls is actually going to be bringing some pretty good AP to the table against them. But I really think this is the way to do it. So you break their front line, their Skeleton Warriors, then you just kind of keep a very tight formation, advance forward, just kind of give that inexorable advance. Get in there and get down and dirty. On top of that, 2 groups of Harpies are very useful, as well as Dark Riders. Dark Riders obviously good at dealing with Skeleton Archers, and even if they're, just shutting down Ushapti Great Bow temporarily while your front line does good, some heavy lifting, I think it's going to be very strong. So in the Tomb Kings patch, Malekith actually did get a bit of a cost increase, so he's still very expensive, but I personally still think he's a very competitive choice. Against the Tomb Kings, I wouldn't recommend getting him on the Dragon because the Ushapti Great Bows can kind of pick him out of the sky. So getting on the Velociraptor Raptor, I think, is a nice balance of, fast and, gives him some good stopping power and is also, useful. So Gaze and Mouse right there doing some good work against those Skeleton Warriors. On top of that, 2 of the Blackheart Corsairs with the handbow, so I figured they would be pretty good. They're durable, 80 armor, so against Skeleton Archers, they'll survive. They just bring, a lot to the table, I think. I really, really like them. They can shoot while moving, which is a huge boon in a lot of matchups. 2 Harpies up in the air to shut down troops in the back line, and some Dread Spears in the back, just to kind of round things up. So for the Gabo King, frontline of Skeleton Warriors, 3 Ushapti Great Bow, one of them being the Regiment of Renown, which have the Shield Breaker, which I think is very good. They can break the shield on Malekith, for example. So if they're shooting at Malekith, they can get that extra damage in there, which I think is really, really good. He's got some spears in the back. He does have Necropolis Knights with halberds over here to kind of defend. So a very, very good defensive formation from the Gabo King. And he does have the Sepulchral Stalkers, which are a very cool unit. So these guys are anti-large, armor piercing, and they also have an AP missile attack. So Gabo King was chipping away at my flanks, doing a really good job, just kind of working down my Black Guard. He does also have 2 groups of carrying, which might be able to overpower one of my Harpies for sure. So without further ado, guys, let's have some fun and let's do it. So in the front, you can see that Malekith is going to be diving in, getting a little bit of damage on these skeletons. I figured I might as well just try and buckle them really quick. And one thing, Katep, when you have him on his casket, he has just unlimited winds of magic. It's pretty insane. And look at this damage Gabo's doing. So very, very well played here. One of the first, players I played against who actually uses his Sepulchral Stalkers pretty effectively in a grass format. I do get my handbows out there to kind of counter shoot them, but of course they have some armor, so they'll be a little bit durable. And I think I also do detach to my Dread Spears in a moment here to go help out. So I get a good chill wind right there on that front line, and the Blackguard and Nagarond are going to be diving up. Harpies in the meantime, I'm going to use them to just muck these guys up. I don't want them to be shooting with impunity at my troops. So my handbows are also going to be shooting here in the back line. I do also get my Dark Riders on the back, just looking for an opportunity. But of course, Gabo King being a very good player is able to kind of screen those guys out with his Necropolis Knights there. No fun, and I think he actually did use a slow ability. Or looks like there's some sort of a curse going down. I'm not sure what it is. But over here, Katep is still doing some good work, just kind of teeing off into my front line and kind of trolling my troops. I do get my Harpies in the back on top of these Ushapti. They're obviously going to lose. The Harpies have really poor AP, and the Ushapti can beat them down pretty good. But I just wanted to kind of stop them from firing for a little bit of time. In the meantime, over here, Gabo King is able to get his 2 Carrion, which Carrion 1-to-1 lose horribly to Harpies, but in a 2-versus-1 situation, plus the range support of the Sepulchral Stalkers, he was able to actually kill my Harpies, which was a very, very good kind of tactical play there. And the Stalkers, obviously having 50 speed, are able to kite back my Dread Spears, but I'm still screening them out pretty effectively, and I think my handbows and spears here should be able to deal with them pretty adequately. In the front here, the Black Guard and Nagarond right here just fighting in the pits versus the Kepra Guard, but they're heavily outnumbered. Definitely don't have the raw DPS to kind of punch through these very heavy regiments renowned right here. These guys do have regeneration, and as far as like Tomb King's infantry go, they're pretty heavy duty. And also you can see the Gobble King is going to be moving the Grand Hierophant up close, probably getting ready to do some sort of a Vortex ability, which will do huge devastating damage. But aside from that, over here the Tomb King's line is collapsing. Right here it's collapsing. He did get some pretty good spells here that did some good damage, and obviously some focus fire with the Ushabti Great Bows. But for the most part, the front line engagement's looking okay for me. But the biggest issue is he does have all these Ushabti Great Bows in the back. Katep's in pretty good shape, and my front line's looking a little bit tattered. In the back though, a good catch. I'm able to get the carrion. He did engage on the Blackheart Corsair, so I just put them in melee and engage with the Dread Spears. So hopefully we'll be able to clean those guys up. And also another good play from the Gobble King. He's able to get these Necropolis Knights in the back and just catch my Dark Riders. I got a little bit sloppy with my angling, but what's cool about Necropolis Knights is they have poison. So once they got on there, they're able to lower them to 70 speed, which basically means they're not going to get away. So if you slip up for 1 second against them, that's kind of the advantage they have over Demogryph Knights. So in the battle here, you can see Malekith is going to be pushing through in his Velociraptor. The Bounce of Power currently in the Gobble King's favor. And one big scary thing that I do have coming for me is that there's going to be an Ushabti summon coming pretty soon. The Ushabti Great Bow is still teeing off into my armor, doing a good job, but now I'm able to kind of pull these troops over here and get a pretty good little formation with the Harganeth and these Blackheart and Ogron. So yeah, a lot of work coming down from these guys. Only 21 kills, but again, mostly against elite troops, so definitely paying their dues. But I do break this flank very, very heavily. There's a couple of Ushabti Great Bows, but they'll lose pretty hard against these Harganeth Executioners, and of course the Blackheart Corsairs. The Handbow is going to be providing some pretty useful overwatch there. So definitely a very, very even battle. I think he did summon the Ushabti somewhere. I'm not sure where he did. In the back, his Sepulchral Stalkers are just still, kind of kiting about and just having some fun. But I do have some Dread Spears able to kind of screen those guys out, so definitely netting some pretty good value. And a Gaze of Malice doing huge damage against those Skeleton Spears. And I do also drop a Dread Spear, so just doing a full-on nuke right there, just taking out those Kepra Guard and Soul Stealer and just as much burst damage as I can. Definitely, the Dark Elf way. But unfortunately, the bounce power shifts even more in his favor when you can see the Ushabti summon coming in. So the Ushabti, one of the main reasons I like the Black Guard of Nogron is because and look at that Vortex from the Gobble King. It's just getting in there and doing work. Oh no, right into those Black Guard, that pocket, doing some big, big HP damage. So very well played there using Katep's strengths. But, one of the issues about Katep is he is really squishy. So I'm able to get into the back line a little bit, but Gobble King using these Necropolis Knights with Halberds very effectively to kind of screen me out. You can see Malekith is going to be pulling back right here. So the Blackheart Corsairs and the Blackheart and Ogron are going to collapse and hopefully be able to protect me. And the Velociraptor is able to kind of squeak away, probably a little bit easier than like a large entity, dragon or something would. So some Harpies come back from route and they're able to jump over here on top of these Chosen of the Gods, definitely locking them down at a very clutch point in the battle where it's very close is very, very important. Bounce power, though, heavily in the favor of the Gobble King. But, for the most part, I have a strong infantry corps. These Handbows doing a good job kind of teeing off into those troops there despite their armor. And the Harganeth Executioners and the Blackheart and Ogron should be able to clean up these skeletons, no problem. I mean, the Kepra Guard do have regeneration, much like the Sternsmen. So they're a tough cookie to crack. But, the Ushabti are a summoned unit here, so they are going to degenerate. And the Harganeth Executioners, obviously, you don't want them fighting Ushabti, but they do have really good AP value, so they should be able to clean those up. In the meantime, though, Gobble King coming in the back with these very heavy Sepulchral Stalkers. So these guys, they hit hard in melee. They're not pushovers. They're going to be collapsing into my back line here. And you can see my Harganeth Executioners are going to be buckling to that pressure. But I do have this big ball of pretty powerful units here. So, a healthy group of Black Guard with 42 models, 63 Blackheart Corsairs, and we're just going straight for the Roomba over here. So the Roomba is going to spin and try and get away, but obviously he's been reaping the benefit of that Winds of Magic all game, just using tons of magic on me and vortexes and really good marksmanship from him. But, the downside of the Roomba being that it can get chased down and just beaten. So look at the Roomba not taking any of that. But Malekith is obviously a pretty good assassin, so he's going to get on the Roomba and start doing some good damage. In the force here, I do have some Harganeth Executioners, so they finally kind of broken through this flank and getting through these chaff and really putting them down with that anti-infantry. And from there, they're going to march over here and probably be able to crush these Ushabti with the Great Bows. The Ushabti, you can fight against armor, but they definitely need some support. I mean, they can get chopped down. They only have 9 models, so, the AP units get through them pretty quick. The Dread Spears and the Handbows and everyone down here are finally winning the fight, so I do have a lot of troops rallying. You can see that the Blackguard and Ogron are finally getting rid of those Kepra Guard. Definitely a very solid unit on the Tomb King's roster. Bounce power is pretty even. Looks like Gobble King is baiting me into a Vortex here. It's definitely some good stuff, so it's going to catch a lot of my Handbows and other units. So that, man, Katep is really solid. At first I thought he was going to be a meme lord, but I really, really do think he's pretty competitive. But unfortunately, he has taken a bit of a beating from Malekith, so now that I've finally busted through the Tomb King's front line, you can see he's just like, oh, screw this Velociraptor is chasing me. So Malekith is able to take him down. You can see he's going to fall in the trees there. And for the first time in the battle, the bounce power is shifting in my favor, and you can see a lot of the Tomb King stuff, of course, being much like the Vampire Counts, is going to be contingent on having your Lord alive. So you're able to get in there and get the Sepulchral Stalkers down, and they're starting to crumble, and I think the Ushabti are crumbling, and that's probably going to be it. We'll go ahead and fast forward through the last of the game as Malekith kind of chases down these troops and cleans up the scraps. So very well played there. It was cool getting to see the Sepulchral Stalkers and some of these constructs in action. He did a really good job with those. I do think the big weakness of the Tomb Kings is going to be the infantry line. Like, I played a multitude of games, and when I played my first couple games versus Indie Pride in the pre-release, and I was like, oh, Tomb Kings have weak infantry. Let's go ahead and just use weak infantry to beat them. It didn't work. I found the way that I've had the most success with dealing with Tomb Kings is simply to use very heavy infantry lines like Harganeth and Chosen with Halberds and Chaos Warriors and Black Orcs to just pound their front line, and then from there you kind of fight this war of attrition versus their constructs. Now you might lose, you might get overwhelmed by their power and the Ushapti summon and things like that, but I think that's one of the better ways. I mean, you could honestly probably go 3 Blackguard and 2 Bleak Swords and then go wider in other areas, like maybe some Dark Charge or things like that. But I think you need to have a couple heavy infantry to really anchor your front line and then punish the Tomb King for one of their biggest weaknesses. I really, really think that's a solid plan in my opinion. Like, for example, if he had gone with like a very heavy, like, Cetra on a Cambrian War Sphinx or, Tomb Prince, my Blackguard and Ogron would have been able to do a ton of work against those type of units. So I think, and they also do well against the other matchups. But Gobbo King, obviously, this was only his first game, like first or second game playing Tomb King, so he's still learning all the units. But very good instincts on him, getting the Chosen of the Gods. I think that's going to be the strongest units. Like, these Ushapti Greybows are going to counter the heavy infantry build. So I think you could probably bring like 3 or 4 of these guys and then just have like a ton of cav and skirmishing units and just really punish heavy infantry builds with skirmishing. I think there's going to be a ton of cool stuff from the Tomb Kings with that. But yeah, again, very well played to my opponent, the Gobbo King. Make sure to go check out his YouTube channel. He's going to be casting this game as well, I'm sure. And we're going to be playing a bunch of games in the next couple weeks. So make sure to stay tuned for that fun business. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So thanks again for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this content, and we'll be seeing you guys soon. Take care.